The primordial deities of Greek mythology represent the earliest and most elemental aspects of the natural world. They were believed to have given rise to the rest of the gods and the world itself, and their power and influence were considered to be immense and enduring. The primordial deities were often depicted as powerful and mysterious figures who were revered and honored in religious ceremonies and rituals. Achilles was the personification of misery and sadness and was associated with the struggles of life and the inevitability of death. She was depicted as a woman with a veil over her face and was often associated with the mists of death that surrounded the underworld. Ether was the personification of the upper atmosphere and was said to be the light that illuminated the world and the sky. He was thought to be an ethereal being and was associated with clarity, light, and life. Aion was the personification of eternity and the cyclical nature of time. He was depicted as a deity with a serpentine body, often encircling the earth, and was associated with the cyclical progression of the seasons and the ages of humankind. Ananke was the personification of necessity and inevitability and was seen as the embodiment of the laws of the universe and the unbreakable bonds of destiny. She was often depicted as a stern and implacable deity, holding the threads of fate and controlling the actions of the gods and mortals alike. Chaos was the personification of disorder, confusion, and the absence of structure, that is, the void and darkness, which were the unformed and undifferentiated matter that preceded the creation of the universe and everything in it. Kronos was the personification of time and was depicted as a bearded man holding a scythe or an hourglass, and was a wise and powerful god who once ruled over the universe and controlled the fates of all things. Erebus was the personification of darkness and shadow and was depicted as a dark, mysterious figure representing the unknown and unseen. He was also associated with the underworld, the place where the souls of the dead went after death. Eros was the personification of sexual love and beauty and was associated with the idea of life-giving and life-sustaining love. He was often depicted as a handsome and youthful deity carrying a bow and arrows, which he used to strike people and make them fall in love. Gaia was the personification of the earth and was considered the mother of all living things. She was depicted as a motherly figure, often pregnant, thus associating her with the idea of fertility and growth. She was also said to have given birth to the mountains, rivers, and seas. Hemera was the personification of the daytime and the light and was associated with the idea of rebirth and renewal. Often depicted as a youthful and radiant goddess, she symbolized the power of the sun and the life-giving qualities of light. Hypnos was the personification of the state of slumber and the power of rest, thus being the god of sleep. He was often depicted as a young man carrying a horn of opium, which was said to induce sleep and bring dreams to the sleeper. Nemesis was the personification of divine vengeance, punishing individuals for their pride, hubris, and excessive success, thus ensuring that the balance of the universe was maintained. She was often depicted as a beautiful and imposing figure holding a scale that symbolized the balance of justice and the consequences of one's actions. Nesoi were the personification of islands and were associated with the earth and fertility. They were often depicted as nymphs or maidens and were believed to have the power to both bless and curse sailors and their ships. Nyx was the personification of the night, representing darkness and the unknown. She was often depicted as a woman shrouded in darkness and was believed to have the power to control the stars, the moon, and to bring both good and bad dreams to people. Auri were the personification of mountains and represented the enduring power of nature. They were often depicted as strong and majestic beings who had the power to shake the earth and cause earthquakes. They also possessed great wisdom and were considered to be the source of divine insight and inspiration. Phanes was the personification of creation, procreation, and light, and thus was thought to have brought light to the world. He was often depicted as a winged deity with multiple heads, symbolizing his power and ability to see in all directions. Pontus was the personification of the vast and unpredictable sea and was associated with the life-giving and destructive aspects of the ocean. He was often depicted as a powerful and mysterious figure with a long beard and wearing a crown of seaweeds. Sailors and seafarers revered him, offering him sacrifices and prayers for safe voyages. Tartarus was the personification of the deepest and darkest part of the underworld, where the wicked and the damned were punished after death. He was considered a fearsome and punishing figure, often depicted as a dark and gloomy place. Thalassa was a sea goddess who arose from the chaotic waters at the beginning of time and was believed to have the power to calm and rage the seas. She was often depicted as a woman with the lower half of her body resembling the waves of the sea and was revered as the provider of sustenance to humans. Thanatos was the personification of death, which was considered to be an inevitable and inescapable aspect of life. He was depicted as a dark and shadowy figure, often carrying a baton and having a pair of wings, symbolizing the swiftness of death. Uranus was the personification of the sky and thus was believed to have the power to both calm and rage the winds and storms. He was often depicted as a powerful and majestic figure, holding a staff or a scythe and wearing a crown of stars.